Firsthand witness that every day our President Joe Biden fights for the American people, and we are deeply, deeply grateful for his service to our nation.
Attention now shifts, of course, not just to what could be the other half of the Harris ticket, but to the other side, right? The opposition, Trump's team, a team that appeared not just eager for a rematch, but completely designed and built for a rematch with one man, President Biden. Questions about debates and age and cognitive abilities and electability will continue to swirl. They will all be on the Republican side. And this much is certain. It is a brand new day for the Democrats, and perhaps for the country as well. It's where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Democratic strategist, professor at Columbia University, MSNBC political analyst Basil Smikle's here, plus former senator, co-host of MSNBC's How to Win 2024 podcast, Claire McCaskill's here. Also joining us, political strategist, MSNBC senior analyst Matt Dowd is here, and chief political columnist, host of the podcast In Politic for Puck, MSNBC national affairs analyst John Heilman. Let me start by thanking all of you, because on and off TV, your wisdom and your calm and your faith sort of helped me take this chair every day at 4 o'clock for the last 3.5 weeks. So first, to all of you, thank you. John Heilman, I want to start with your reporting from late last night in Puck, and the 3 words that you said everyone was texting you. I think I probably sent you at least one. Take us through what you were able to report.
Well, yeah, I mean, Nicolle, there are a couple things. I mean, I do think that the immediate reaction, you know, when the surprise announcement came yesterday at 1:46 p.m., I guess, you know, there was a wave, obviously, among everybody in the Democratic political class of some combination of the following things, one of which was people were sad, another was that they were grateful, and a third was that they were relieved. And I think that, and that doesn't obviously speak for everybody in the whole broad Democratic tent, but, you know, for the last 3 weeks, there have been a lot of people who are involved in politics professionally in the Democratic Party. And by that, I mean elected officials, congressmen and women, senators, mayors, governors, donors, strategists, and staffers. And by staffers, I mean staffers on Capitol Hill, staffers on campaigns, and staffers in the Biden campaign orbit who had been, you know, as you well know, we've been reporting and talking about for 3 weeks, had been in a state of panic, a state of fear, in some quarters, resentment, anger. All of that melted away the moment when President Biden did what he did, that took this kind of selfless path and did what he did. What was in the end concluded what was best for the party and for the best for the country. And you suddenly had people even people who had been screaming over the last 3 weeks, screaming about why is Joe Biden so pig-headed? Why won't Joe Biden do the right thing? Why is he being so selfish? Why is he this? Why is he that? And again, I'm not on their side. I'm not taking sides in this fight. I'm just telling you as a reporter, we all heard this. People who were angry, frustrated, freaked out. All of a sudden they were, as I said, sad. I mean, the sense of like grief in some sense, watching this very good man do this very hard thing, I think hit people, even people who'd been desperate for him to leave 2 minutes earlier, were suddenly hit with the sense of grief over seeing what, you know, that this was now it's effectively a guy announcing the end of a long and storied and valiant political career. And also this sense of kind of gratitude for what he was doing, the selflessness of it. And I will say, you know, and you can see it on the faces of people all over television today, from Hakeem Jeffries on down in the Democratic political world, a sense of kind of relief. This great weight of the last 3 weeks kind of lifted off people's shoulders. And at least, even if you thought Joe Biden should have fought it out, to suddenly have clarity about what was going to happen, to no longer be sitting here in a state of suspense. Will he stay? Will he go? Will we continue to tear each other apart? That suddenly, that weight lifted off their shoulders. And I will say it lifted even further off their shoulders as they saw their party rally in such a decisive way around Vice President Harris.
You know, Basil, from working on campaigns, I've always felt that campaigns that win get too much credit for being brilliant, and campaigns that lose get too much blame for being moronic and incompetent. There are often other wins and other factors. And this campaign cycle has been rocked 3 times in 3 weeks by extraordinary events. This debate performance that started this conversation, an assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, President Joe Biden's decision to leave the race. Two things have been true, though, through all of it. Vice President Kamala Harris was sort of the first and the calmest voice out of the gate after that debate, saying, not telling us we hadn't seen what we thought we saw, but saying, I'm not going to have 90 minutes shape a record of 3.5 years. Her events on the trail, which have always been excellent, she's an excellent politician, became, you could just tell that she put the Biden-Harris campaign on her back and carried it over the last 3 weeks. The other thing that happened was that Trump gave a speech in which everyone was reminded that, of course, he lost in 2020. He's the opposite. He's not he has a loyalty and a bond between his supporters and him that is something people will study for the next 200 years. But just as a figure on the stump, he is beatable and defeatable, and I think we'll see a contest that makes that very, very clear in the coming days.
I think that's absolutely right. I'll go back to John's point. The word he used was clarity, and I think over the last 25 days, it's been excruciating trying to sort of understand, what's going on in the minds of some of these leaders. What is Joe Biden thinking? How is the party going to move forward? And I think what you have, among other things, is this clarity now. It's a change in the narrative of this race in many ways. And just consider the fact that last night, almost 50,000 black women got on a call and raised $1.5 million. That's double the capacity of Madison Square Garden in one night. In case anyone's asking, the brothers are getting on a call tonight, so there's that. But it's important to note that what voters are feeling is an inflection point, not just in the campaign cycle, but in our country. We've often talked about young voters and where they might be in this election. Young voters, I believe, can see a lot of themselves in Kamala Harris. And so it feels different. There's an enthusiasm there that may not have been there a day ago. And we can see that also with the fundraising totals that have been reached in a day and the record-setting totals there. And just as a quick moment to say about Joe Biden, President Biden, we've often talked about Republicans not putting country over party. In one moment, he did more than most Republicans have done on the Hill in the last 20 years in terms of that very point of putting country over party. And so now, as it looks like Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, is poised to get this nomination, this presidential nomination, it is gratifying, and I think it's a sign of strength that you've seen so many come out and support her so early. That's critical. It helps with the fundraising. It helps with the ground game. It helps as governors are being called to make sure that their delegates are also engaged as we approach the convention. I'm impressed by the speed with which her campaign turned all of this around in their ability to sort of get on the ground running and really have a sprint, not just to the convention, but to the end of this cycle. So every moment is going to be really important for them. And I just think about pride for so many voters that are going to look at her and see themselves in her. This is a long legacy that in many ways started with Shirley Chisholm, who talked about getting on the Chisholm Trail. And it included everyone from yes, Hillary Clinton, my former boss, but also Senator Carol Moseley Braun and Geraldine Ferraro and so many others. And so it feels like a big inflection point. It is an inflection point. And you see that in everything that's been done over the last 24 hours.
Claire, one of the places where voters make up their mind is deep, deep, deep in their guts. And I know most of this from Matt Dowd, but I also know this from being on the campaign. And one of the most extraordinary contrasts that Joe Biden has given the Democratic side is it's not about me. It's not about any one person. It's about our country. It's about our democracy. And you could have written the most beautiful speeches and told them every day from today till Election Day. But by doing what he did, voters can understand that at a real gut level.
Yeah, this is, we have been saying now for months that this is a campaign about contrast. And what a contrast Joe Biden has provided to the American people. I mean, you have a selfish jerk on one side of the equation that clearly is more focused on himself and his image and people adoring him than he is the people of this country. And then you have Joe Biden, who has done something that will make his legacy legend, literally legend in the history books. It is without precedent that someone at this point in a campaign has taken such a bold step to protect the country. And I think that's how I know that's how the Democrats view it. I think most Americans will view it the same way. And that single act has unleashed what my colleagues have called clarity. I would say it is really unity and a level of enthusiasm that I don't think our party has seen in some time. And it is, my phone has been just as busy today, almost as busy as it was yesterday. But I sense from those elected officials that are on the ballot this fall, they're like, okay, let's go. We can do this. This is all good. And they're very excited to get out there and campaign for this woman. And you see her there hugging and kissing Chris Coons, who is such a good man and is and will always be such a loyal friend to President Joe Biden.
So we should tell our viewers, the vice president is visiting the Biden-Harris presidential campaign headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware, which obviously today becomes the Harris campaign headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware. An important piece. Matt Dowd, you and I have worked on presidential campaigns. You leave it all on the field. You pour everything into your candidate and your campaign, and this has been a wrenching 3.5 weeks for them. I heard another word, though. John Heilman talked about grief. I heard that from a lot of people. I also today heard from a lot of people, operatives, advisors, lawyers, donors, who are happy, who are so happy and so excited and so ready to execute a campaign and to sort of get about the business of drawing these contrasts, to defend where the Democratic side needs defending around some of the attacks that have gone unanswered in the last couple of weeks, and to prosecute a case against Donald Trump's record, against Donald Trump's act of ending the tradition of peaceful transfer of power, against Project 2025, which is the blueprint for a second term, and against his incredibly radical vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance.
Yeah, I mean, you think about this race now, it's fascinating to me, and as having done the 2000 Bush campaign, which was a challenger race against an incumbent party, and then the reelect, which is a defensive race, as you and I did, in this race right now had felt before like two incumbents, a former president dominating the Republican Party